Misunderstood rebel. You've never fit in. No one understands you. And truth to tell, you don't care anymore. Your dark, brooding clothing, pale features, and much tattooed flesh is a part of who you are. And if people can't accept that, that's their problem, not yours. I love Player's Handbook 2. It's a very nice book, filled with a lot of goodies. This is a rant on remembering what's on your character sheet, which a lot of people don't. And full disclosure, I'm one of them. I've forgotten that I've had things. When I say you have certain things, I mean feats. People forget they have certain feats. Spells. If you're a primary spellcaster, I can understand it's very hard to remember off the top of your head that, oh, today I have Find Traps as a cleric, because Rogue wasn't there for some reason. Having certain items. How am I supposed to remember that I bought 40 smoke sticks? Well, one, why'd you buy 40 smoke sticks? Two, that's a nice thing to have. You might want to remember that. I forgot that. I played an Incarnate of Chaos in a Expedition to Ravenloft game. He died on Sunday. That probably could have been prevented, if I remembered that I had four smoke sticks written down on my character sheet. Would have stopped somebody from shooting 3 enervating scorching rays at my face and critting me with one of them. Could have hidden there, maybe healed myself, or had the healer healed me. He was a capital H healer. Don't forget you have certain skills. What rogue remembers that they have concentration? What rogue puts points in concentration? I know one who did. A rogue, a very skill-based rogue, who his whole thing was he was a locksmith, and that's how he made money in the when we were not adventuring. Most of his points went in, most of his skills and resources went into making sure he was the best locksmith, sort of engineer that he could be, which is fine. And he did take weapon finesse at some level, just so that when he attacked people with his short sword, he didn't suck, which was, totally okay. It wasn't a high-powered game. I think what did I play? I played an archery-based fighter, I think. Yeah, was that him? Yeah. But he actually forgot that he had concentration, which, it's very easy to do if you're not a spellcaster, to remember that you have to, you need to concentrate on, say, disabling a device. But here's what happened in this scenario. We're adventuring through a dungeon, an abandoned barracks infested by zombies. And, I think it's 9th level this is happening, so, we're pretty good at what we do. Then we go through, and the rogue searches for traps, and he finds a symbol of death on the door. And he's like, okay, well, I can deal with this. This is totally okay. Starts disabling it. Perfect. It'll take him 2 minutes. Mummies attack. Okay. We can do this. We can do this. Thankfully, the cleric is what was the cleric? The cleric was a dwarf. And he was pretty much the melee fighter of the group. He was a dwarf cleric of Heronius. He had a sword. He was pretty good at getting up there and making himself like a ball of meat, which pretty much was. But then the DM is like, "Hey, Mr. Rogue, it's getting hard to focus on that device you're disabling. You need to take a couple penalties if you want to keep your focus." And the rogue's like, "Oh man, yeah, I guess, man." And he literally said, the rogue, who had at that point a plus 15 to concentration, with the DC being, I think, 20. He's like, "Man, I really wish I had points in concentration." Okay, what's my disable device modifier? Goes, puts his finger on the top of his character sheet where it says appraise, goes down past, has climb past concentration and goes down to disable device. And I'm just sitting there and I'm paying attention. I think because at some point a lich showed up or something. I was looking to see if I had any holy hours or something like that. So I was busy. Rogue wound up taking so many penalties on his disable device check that the symbol of death went off and killed him. Cool. That created a lot of problems for us, and obviously it created more problems for him because he was dead and we weren't. But we were left there fending off a horde of zombies and mummies, a lich. There was a vampire in there somewhere. It was a whole mess because somebody forgot what they had. Which, to be fair, it happens. It happens. People how are you gonna remember that you have all this stuff unless you actively every round when you're not doing something, like when it's not your turn, every round you look through your character sheet and are like, oh, when did my sorcerer take magic missile? What sorcerer doesn't take magic missile, by the way? Remember what you have. Don't. It's easy to forget. I understand. I've been there. I've seen it happen. I ran a game a couple maybe a year ago where there was a sword and board fighter in the group. He had shield charge and shield specialization, all that. Shield slam. Never used them. Never used them. No, not even that. It was hard because he eventually began to fall behind, and when I played a true namer, yes, I played a true namer, by the way, and I made it. I'm alive. I didn't die. I didn't drive myself crazy. When I started, because we ended around level 9 or 10, when I started spitting out 2 buffs at the same time, because I took quicker non-utterance, and I had a plus 43 to my true speak check at that point, level 9, he began to fall behind because he didn't remember what he took. I felt so bad, but I mean, I kept saying, hey, dude, you got anything that, you got anything written on your character sheets that might be able to help us here? Because I didn't know what he was taking. He asked me for suggestions, but, everybody asked me for suggestions because I spend an exorbitant amount of time playing 3.5 Dungeons & Dragons. I spent a lot of time doing it, so, yeah. But he forgot what he had. He eventually fell behind, and he was he just felt like a conduit of damage because he was the only warrior in the group, and the only thing he really had to offer besides his excellent choice of feats that he forgot about was, yeah, I'll just stand here and get hit by the fireballs until the druid comes up and puts hit points back in my face. I felt so bad. But I've done it. I've been that guy too. I was so stupid. Thankfully, this isn't as bad as a paladin forgetting his lay on hands. But this was bad. Okay, so long time ago, I'd say 3 years at this point, I played a cleric. I played he didn't worship any deity. He had the war domain and the strength domain cleric. He was sort of like a big, beefy dude. Cool, whatever. He was good. All my level 1 spells were divine favor. It was all Goku cleric type stuff that I would just buff myself and get in there and hit things, while the barbarian did work. Cool. That's cool. We had somebody else in the party with healing magic. We had what was he? We had a druid. Yeah, we had a druid. It was barbarian, cleric, druid, and transmuter. Yeah, transmuter. That was a decent party. It was a decent party until the druid went down at one point. And I was sort of just standing there oh man, I wish I prepared healing spells today. What's wrong with me? I should have prepared healing spells. My cleric was neutral good aligned. I could have just spontaneously cast a healing spell in lieu of one of my other spells. I did not remember that because I forgot I forgot my class features. I forgot my abilities. The druid died because of me. Because of me. And I felt so horrible because I'm like, oh man, I wish I could have helped you. I really should have prepared some healing spells. And then the druid's like, you know, you can cast healing spells spontaneously, right? I'm like, yep, I knew that. I did not remember that until it was too late. Thank you. Druid gets hit by gets hit by a salamander. What the hell's wrong with me? Don't forget what you have, or your druid friend and his bear will die. Well, his bear didn't die yet. He died like 2 rounds later. I was an idiot. I forgot what I had. It's okay. The one of the big things I see people forget, and I see this almost like every time somebody plays a rogue and they don't take any alternate class features, which is fine. The rogue is a decent class. That really hurt. Up until level 19, they don't get anything at level 20, but people forget they have trap sense. Okay. On the fair side, looking at it objectively, trap sense sucks. Trap sense is too situational for it to be useful. Okay, like, fair enough. That's why a lot of people trade it out for alternate class features. Not Unearthed Arcana, because I hate that book. I don't hate that book. I once saw a rogue. A rogue was searching for traps. A rogue was just like, whatever, searching. They fail their search roll and proceed forward. You know, as one does. And a poisoned caltrop comes out of the ground. Stabs him in the foot. It would not have done that if the rogue remembered that she had trap sense with a +3. Yep, her AC against that attack was like 15. The DM rolled a 17 to the caltrop, and her trap sense was +3. She took like 12 constitution damage and died. Bad. Really bad. People die because they forget they have things. And I can understand with items and spells and powers because those are things that you take because you kind of have to take them. Like, you don't want to waste learning a spell. And, like, sometimes you just, like, you kill a Mind Flayer and you're like, oh, what'd the Mind Flayer have? Why'd the Mind Flayer have the Book of Erotic Fantasy? That will probably never come up. And then you run into a succubus and she's like, give me this book or die. And you're like, where are we going to get the Book of Erotic Fantasy? Don't forget you have things. It's very easy with spells and items and powers. Gotta be fair. Science and magic. I like science better. But with feats, people forgetting feats, class features, skills. Moral of the story, moral of these stories is don't forget you have things because they will save your life and you will die if you forget them. Or at least you can die in a blaze of glory. Like, my first incarnate, his death was one of the best deaths I've ever done. Let me explain. Okay, so this is when I really first got into Incarnum after I played my first incarnate. This was my second incarnate, excuse me. This was my second incarnate, and he was based around using the Mantle of Flame Soul. He like boosted the hell out of it. He had like 10d6 on that thing. And if you're not familiar with Incarnum, it's essentially like creating magic items and putting them on yourself. Because in the Mantle of Flame, every time somebody hits you with a melee weapon or a natural weapon that doesn't have reach, they take a d6 of fire damage plus 1d6 for every like point of mana you put into it, essentially. at higher levels, that can get really devastating if people hit you with multiple attacks. And that's exactly what I did. Here's how I killed, I'd say 36 people. We were facing an army. This was like the last battle. And my incarnate, I was like, okay, this is like one of 2 attacks I have. This is actually my only attack. And it's a retaliatory attack. My strength was like 6. No, my strength was 8. My dexterity was 14. My constitution was like, at that point, my constitution was in the 30s. So I had a bucket of hit points. And I had the soul meld that gives me extra hit points. So I had like, I think at that point I had like 400 hit points. But here's what I did. We were facing an army of orcs. And there was a 5-foot slit in between units. Ran through them. All the orcs AF'd me. I got crit like 6 times. And these were not mook orcs. These were not like level 1 warrior orcs. These were like level 6 fighters. Yeah. And I was a level 20 incarnate. They hit hard. So like each time I ran through, they were wheeling they were wheeling Falcines as orcs. Each time I took like 12 damage a hit, and I ran through. I killed like 12 of them just by the retaliatory damage alone. I got to the boss. The boss was a desert half-orc marshal that was leading all this army, and it was bad. And oh yeah, I remember because each time I got hit, I was flanked, and I took like an extra like 10 damage because they were flanking me, and the marshal was had that aura on. It sucked. I took like 100 damage going through there. I go up to the marshal, I tackle him, or try to tackle him anyway. He AOPs me, he crits me, he does like 30 damage with a crit, with a scimitar. It hurt. And I that's how I got up there. And all the orcs surround me and kill me. I did kill a fair amount of them doing that. But I probably could have avoided dying if I remembered that I had like, I don't know, a scroll of dimension door on me. That would have helped. And I had used magic device, so that would have saved my ass in that situation, but I was too stupid to remember it, and I died in a blaze of glory. So don't forget what you have. It will save your character. It will save your friends' characters. It will defeat your enemies' characters. Don't forget what you have. Remember your trap sense, rogues. And for the love of God, remember your spells, bards.